Welcome to Orbit, everybody. It's Salem coming at you with a brand new video. Now, as an Overwatch content creator, I consume a lot of Overwatch content. Like, a lot. Generally, it's all I listen to at work these days if I'm able to, whether it's OWCS streams, Spylo telling me how awful I am, Emong VOD reviews, all that stuff. But one thing I've noticed for a very, very long time is the sheer lack of comprehensive, modern Juno guides. Maybe other small creators like myself have posted them, but really the only ones I've seen are pushing a year or more old at this point. So I thought I'd take it upon myself to fill that gap. Now I want to preface this with one thing. I'm not a GM, champ, or top 500 player that you'd probably expect this kind of video from, and I won't pretend to be. My average rank is about Diamond, and last season I dipped into Masters just before the rank reset, which I could probably hold if I had the time to put in the rank grinding like I used to, but I think this actually adds a bit more nuance into the story. This isn't a guide to get you unranked to GM. It's a guide for the Hardstuck golds and plats who just can't seem to figure out the real problems, not just their aim or whatever. And I know this very well because that was me. I got carried out of gold by release Juno being broken, and I was stuck in plat for over a year after that, almost exclusively one-tricking her. So consider this not how to be the best Juno out there, but rather how to fix common mistakes made by the average and low-ranked Junos to work on building better habits to pull yourself up by the bootstraps in the future. Now, I know you're sick of my ranting, so without further ado, let's get started. Firstly, let's go over the basics. What is Juno's kit exactly? Well, Juno is a support with 225 total HP. 75 of this is regular HP, and 150 of it is shield HP, which regenerates in half the time and significantly faster than normal HP. She has a burst fire hit scan weapon that shoots 12 pellet volleys, which in total will do 72 healing or 90 damage respectively if you land every shot. Her fall off distance is 25 to 35 meters, and her crit multiplier is 1.5 times normal damage on headshots, dealing up to 135 damage max. She also has 3 cooldowns. Glide Boost is a movement ability that slightly raises your vertical position, gives you increased movement speed, and keeps you above the ground for up to 4 seconds, with a cooldown of 6 seconds. It also apparently gives you 50% knockback resistance, but I usually find this to be the opposite, where you get sent significantly further by displacement abilities. Hyper Ring is a projectile that turns into a large ring that, upon touching or passing through it, provides a 50% movement speed increase for up to 3 seconds. Juno herself will always be affected by the speed boost after launching it without needing to touch it. It cannot be negated by things like Defense Matrix and ignores barriers but not walls. It launches up to roughly 18 meters and has a cooldown of 14 seconds. Her final ability is Pulsar Torpedoes. When triggered, Juno will lock on any amount of visible allies or enemies within her field of view and line of sight, and when released, will send projectiles out to any number of those affected. It'll deal 85 healing on hit, and 50 more healing over 2.5 seconds, and for enemies, it'll deal 85 damage at once. When following allies, it'll ignore any walls or shields in the way. It has a range of 40 meters and lasts up to 4 seconds when targeting. It has a cooldown of 10 seconds, but if cancelled before it locks onto any target, its cooldown will only be 2 seconds, which is very hard to proc because it'll usually lock onto something, but the thought's there. Juno has 2 passives, Martian Overboots as well as the Survivor Subroll passive. The Survivor Subroll allows her to instantly begin the passive health regeneration when using her Glide Boost. This does not work on Hyper Ring, by the way, despite it being a speed boosting ability. Martian Overboots allows her to double jump, and when holding the jump button, she can glide similar to Echo or Mercy. Finally, Juno's ultimate is Orbital Ray. On cast, she'll call down a large beam of energy from the sky. Coming into contact with this beam or its circular radius will provide allies with 85 healing per second, as well as 30% damage amplification for 8 seconds, and the effect lingers briefly after exiting. The ray will also travel in a straight line in the direction Juno is facing after casting it. With all of that out of the way, let's break down Juno's overall game plan. Juno excels at providing consistent sources of healing and damage from a safe position behind her team. She's best utilized in brawl compositions where her team can take advantage of the utility given by Speed Ring and the burst value of Orbital Ray and Pulsar Torpedoes, all while maintaining her fall-off distance. She's best off moving from multiple different safe angles to another with her fantastic mobility compared to other supports, as she struggles to hold angles on her own due to her lack of self-sustain and general squishiness, even with their Survivor passive. It's not uncommon for Juno to be the support keeping her tank alive in a dedicated team comp due to her high healing numbers and usage of Hyper Ring, but depending on her composition, she can also assist DPS on holding the shorter angles, albeit significantly riskier for her without proper communication. Speaking of, Juno's entire kit works best with high levels of communication from the player. Her mobility and verticality provide great vantage points to see the whole battlefield and give map knowledge to her teammates, and her cooldowns and ultimate can struggle to perform to their full potential without letting teammates know you're using them in advance. Her skill floor is a little high strictly due to the amount of mobility options, map knowledge, and timing required for her kit, but her overall ceiling is much lower compared to a lot of other heroes as she's mostly very mechanics heavy. She's a decently solid beginner support option, though she will take a good amount of time to fully master. As for Juno's role in each kind of composition. In Brawl Comp, she speeds her team in and out of engages, especially when ultimates are involved. She'll often be the primary healing source on the team for the tank, where someone like a Baptiste or Brigitte will provide AoE healing for everyone. Her ultimate in a brawl matchup is basically the fight win button if used correctly, and you'll want to play relatively close, but not so close that you're at risk of getting hit with the enemy's cooldowns and shots with the rest of your team. In dive, Juno must be played very mobile, and usually much more aggressive. This will put her in more dangerous situations, but falling behind is an even bigger problem due to her fall off distance being relatively short. Juno can also excel at supporting a dive team with the use of pulsar torpedoes, which provides incredible AoE value for multiple dives at once, or characters looking to disrupt a large amount of enemies at once, such as Wrecking Ball or Doomfist. Her damage is also significant enough nowadays to assist others in dives directly with her weapon, or help peel from dives a little bit. In poke, Juno will struggle without someone to make use of her hyperring utility. Her fall off is too short to reliably work in a poke matchup or on a longer sightline map such as Havana, and she'll struggle shooting into things like Sigma or Domino Shield, and she just won't get much value from hyperring or torpedoes at all. Even Orbital Ray becomes very niche for things like Overclock. Against an enemy poke comp, your best bet is to try and brawl them out by playing very fast and aggressive, but if your team is the one on the poke composition, Juno struggles to get very much value unless your team plays very reactively. Now for the good part. Good and bad habits for Juno. I'll start with the good. Something you'll want to do as Juno, similarly to Lucio, is speeding your teammates to the point on control and push maps. However, if you do it after the door opens, you won't have the ring available when the fight starts, which could be crucial to play even more aggressive or very quickly take someone out of a sudden bad moment. But did you know hyperring actually provides 2 speed boosts? The projectile that launches before turning into the ring actually provides a separate application of the speed boost hyperring provides. This is the real reason why Juno gets the speed boost from hyperring no matter what. This means that someone who gets hit by the projectile, then walks through the ring, will get up to 6 seconds of the 50% speed boost. So when the countdown reaches about 3 seconds before the door opens, get behind your team and throw the ring at the door. This will hit them ideally with the projectile, giving them the first 3 seconds, and when the doors open and they hit the ring, they'll receive the additional 3 seconds there. This lets your team reach the point quickly while shaving 3 seconds off the cooldown of the hyperring for the first fight. This one is relatively well known, but Glide Boost can get you a bit more verticality than it might actually appear. This is a pretty easy tech. When using Glide Boost and you want to get on a ledge that's just out of reach, slam your face into the wall repeatedly and rub against it back and forth. This will sort of inch you up the ledge until you're fully up there. It's actually pretty forgiving how far you can go up with this, so feel free to access areas you otherwise wouldn't be able to, especially without triple jump. When using your orbital ray, please make sure you use it just behind or directly inside of your team. I've seen Junos use it way too far back where it never reaches their team, or in my case, too far forward expectantly, which will usually lead to your teammates not acknowledging it fast enough or be able to keep up. Yes, this is shockingly common. My teammates are too scared to push because they're low, because they didn't start the engagement in the orbital ray, so make sure it's hitting people to inspire them to start moving forward and get immediate value. Speaking of, try and communicate your hyper rings, any huge pulsars, and especially your orbital ray. I know talking to gamers can be scary, especially because I know a large population of Juno's player base, and it's especially frustrating when not everyone is in VC. But even if it's just 1 or 2 people, it's better more than just you knowing when these big team-heavy abilities are used. It's not mandatory, but I promise it'll help a lot. Please, please, please don't be afraid to deal damage. I made the initial script before the DPS passive went global, so it's especially important nowadays. Your gun can seriously fuck some people up, and healbotting is way less reliable than it used to be on Juno. You have to output damage pressure to get your full value on any support except exactly Mercy. Now, you shouldn't always shoot the tank, but Juno can actually get a lot of value shooting the enemy tank specifically often. They have big hitboxes, especially head hitboxes, and will almost always be in your line of sight in a brawl matchup, as they'll often be near your own tank or just on the front line in general. The TLDR is that if you can get an easy pick or if no one on your team is critically injured, you should be outputting as much damage with your blaster as possible. More damage to the enemy means less damage they can do to your team, and the less damage they deal, the less you have to heal, and so on and so forth. Always be moving if there is any threat to you. On some maps, Juno can stay in one relatively safe spot pretty fine, mostly on payload maps. But Juno's real strength compared to other supports is her high mobility, due to her overboots and her glide boost, and even hyperring. If there's any sort of dive threat, keep your movement unpredictable and stay rotating around different safe parts of the map. Always have a game plan for what different areas you can go to depending on where a threat might come from. Juno is better than she used to be at 1v1s to protect herself, but you'd ideally prefer not to have to do that at all, and it's best to prevent the engagement at all rather than try to escape once it's already started. Even if you're just bunny hopping between high grounds, that's several more seconds and more distance to cover for, say, a Genji or Tracer to tail you. Alright, and this one is by far the most important, so please listen up. Come on, jingle jingle. Split from your other support. This was by far the most important thing I've ever learned, not just as Juno, but as a support player in general, and within a month is what got me to consistently stay in Diamond and eventually climb into Masters. Now, what do I mean by this? Surely it's good to stay with your other support in case one of you gets dove, right? Well, kind of the opposite. If one of you gets dove with both of you there, that's taking both of your attentions away from the fight to deal with this enemy. And with a lot of modern dive characters like Venture or Vendetta, you might not even succeed in taking them out or keeping your other support up. This means they essentially get a 2-for-1 deal while your team is struggling to stay alive. Does this mean not to help with a dive? Not necessarily. I mean, keeping your other support in your line of sight isn't a bad idea, and you can peel for them. But if you're on the same angle in close proximity, you're much more likely to be pressured simultaneously and can potentially even end up dead yourself. Another big reason to split off though is coverage. Overwatch is a lane-based game. Most maps have roughly 3 lanes, usually a main, coast, and a secret third thing. Commonly, there's something called a 3-2 split. Usually the tank, a support, and a DPS on one of these lanes, and the other DPS and support on another. This isn't always the case, but as you climb in the ranks, the game becomes a lot more nuanced angle-wise outside of either hard flanking or running it down the main choke point that the lower ranks like to do. Splitting from your other support will not only allow you to split your healing and damage pressure together, but will also do fantastic things for your mental. When you have less targets on your screen, be it enemies or teammates, you're able to focus more on what's in front of you. Your other support ideally can take care of their lane while you can focus on your own. It's like how a lot of support guides will tell you not to chase after someone to heal them. You ever notice how a lot of support guides tell you not to chase after someone to heal them if they're not in a convenient position to you? If you're with your Zarya and Sojourn, you don't have to worry about what your Lucio and Tracer are off doing on their own thing. Your Lucio has it covered. And if they don't, that's when you change your game plan. Splitting from your other support will keep both of you much safer overall, and this doesn't mean run away if your other support comes over to you, but if you can help it when starting fights, find a different angle with somebody else, or sometimes if you have to, even yourself. Some maps make this very difficult, but sometimes even just being on the other side of a doorway from your other support can make a huge difference in a fight. Those are some of the good habits I've learned over the years. Let's move on to the bad habits, things that I have or even still do struggle with from time to time. You're most likely wasting your hyper ring. Hypering is a very strong cooldown, but it has a very long cooldown. It's best used to either send people into a fight or take them out of a fight very quickly. You can even use it selfishly to keep yourself safe when rotating. But one of the worst kinds of hyper rings, and I'm very guilty of this even still, are predictive hyper rings. Sometimes you see the perfect opening for a crazy play from your team, and you want them to go rushing headfirst in the enemy team. The idea is perfect, you send the hyper ring, and nothing happens. Your teammates kind of just stay in place and your cooldown is mostly wasted. There's a big reason why I say to try and communicate your cooldowns with your teammates so things like this don't actually happen. But if you really need to, try and wait until you see your teammates actively start engaging. Ryan holding forward and pinning, throw the ring. Genji dashing up for a Dragon Blade, throw the ring. Ramattra using Nemesis form, throw the ring. Junker Queen shout, throw the ring. So on, so forth, you get it. Wait until your teammates are actively moving in or moving out and use your hyper ring to assist them in that instead of trying to kind of command them around like the puppet master you want to be. Don't hold on to your pulsars for too long. There's a lot of times someone will be just out of reach, and so you hold it and hold it and hold it, just waiting for them to peek, and your teammates die, or someone else takes cover, or you die. Pulsars are best used when hitting as many people as possible, yes, but you shouldn't hold it so long when you risk a worse scenario. When using pulsars, you lose uptime on your weapon's healing and damage, making it riskier for yourself and your team. Ideally, if you hit over 2 people with a pulsar, it's a pretty good pulsar, so don't be super afraid to launch it a bit earlier than you would have liked if you think you need to, in order to not sacrifice your blaster's uptime. You might be jumping too much. I'm still guilty of this, but a big problem with Overwatch players is that they love jumping. This might help in very low ranks where no one can aim, but as you climb, jumping only makes your movement much more predictable. It also makes a potential retreat more difficult and can mess up your own aim significantly. It's very tempting to jump with Juno due to getting 2 or even 3 of them. I get it, but this is especially bad for a character who's very prone to getting her head blown off by hit scans. If you're getting dueled by a hit scan, you're likely better off just using a glide or hyper ring to get to cover instead. It's a little different against more dive-oriented heroes, but your jumping should ideally be used to get to high ground where they can't oppress you as easily. Don't hold on to orbital for too long. A lot of players in general are guilty of this, but orbital is a particularly nasty case where the charge time makes holding it feel really bad. Orbital is a very strong teamfight winning ultimate if used correctly, but don't be afraid to just launch it sometimes. Either team down one person, just drop it. Trying to push or deny an angle, drop it. Teammate using Dragon Blade, Overclock, or some other ultimate, drop it. This goes for a lot of support ultimates too, like Kitsune Rush. This doesn't just extend to Orbital Ray. Don't fly into open space too much. Juno, as I mentioned, is very prone to kinda blowing up. Hit scans will eat you alive if you show yourself in the air for too long, so you can't overstay your welcome. Ideally, wait until your team, most likely your tank, makes space and takes attention for you before you swing that corner and pop that fat, juicy 10-man torpedo. And please, for the love of God, don't just sit behind your tank. This is a very big support problem in general, but Juno players are particularly guilty of this. Juno is very strong at supporting her tank specifically, but if there's another better angle you can be taking, take it. Sitting 10 feet behind your Reinhardt holding shield is not going to win you the game more often than not. Take a good angle with cover and support from there, or see what your teammates are doing and if they need help. You have some of the highest mobility in the game. It's a crime to not use it to go around the map as frequently as possible to do what you can when you can. You might notice I never talked about Juno's perks when describing her kit. This is because I wanted to save them for after discussing Juno's playstyle and tips and tricks to make it make more sense. Juno's minor perks are Familiar Vitals and Locked On. Familiar Vitals increases the speed in which your torpedoes lock to teammates by 30%. Locked On reduces the cooldown of your torpedoes by half a second for each enemy it hits. Locked On is generally always the better option here. Familiar Vitals is really only useful in situations where you can't really take aggressive angles with pulsars, for example if there's a Widowmaker preventing you from peeking or if the map is very enclosed. Otherwise, Locked On is incredible for healing and damage uptime, applying more pressure for both and charging your ult faster. Also, it's very satisfying in 6v6. Juno's major perks are Liftoff and Faster Blaster. Liftoff gives her another jump, and Faster Blaster makes her gun fully automatic while in glide boost at the cost of a slightly decreased shoot speed. The majors for Juno are a very big talking point with batters for both. In fact, I think even Aspirin just made a TikTok about it, like as of me saying the script. Personally, I'm team Liftoff. Triple Jump is just absolutely incredible for Juno. It makes it much easier to survey the map, get wider pulsars, access areas without using your glide boost, and escape dives. Faster Blaster isn't bad to me per se, but I think it's very overrated. Having to watch your ammo for this, use your best cooldown, and mess up your muscle memory all for statistically one extra volley worth of shots is kind of crazy to me. I don't think it's terrible, but it's really best on maps with little verticality, I suppose, or against very large tanks for damage pressure. And now, the fun part. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about every single support combo with Juno and sort of how it plays or sort of how you can play. None of this is like mandatory, but it's just what you can maybe expect when having this support as your teammate. This is probably going to be the longest part of the video, so if you don't care about it, feel free to skip to the end. Also, as of editing this, I'm currently sick and I do not have the energy or willpower to play any actual Overwatch seriously right now, so the footage you're going to be seeing in the background is good games, bad games, all the in-between, so if I'm getting shit on in the background, don't take it as part of the guide. It's just background at this point. Also, some of this might be a little bit outdated because I made this part of the script before the Season 1 spotlight, so might be a little bit off. Juno Ana. Juno Ana is a high-risk but high-reward combination. This is because your team will excel at burst healing, and with either support able to keep the front line alive at a given time, the other gets plenty of opportunity to get some good damage in as well. The risk, though, comes from the fact that both characters are incredibly easy to dive, and neither can very easily peel for each other. A dedicated dive or rush comp will be very hard to deal with on most maps. As well, with Ana being the more long-range support, you'll be forced to control the shorter angles as Juno more often than not, which isn't impossible, but isn't really her strong suit due to her squishiness. Works much better on maps with long sightlines and plenty of cover and high ground, for example, Circuit Royale. Juno Bap. Heavily underrated combo in my opinion. Baptiste thrives in the exact compositions and maps that Juno loves. He has incredible group burst healing for brawls, which allows Juno to play much more aggressive. Similarly, he's one of the two supports that can weave their own heals and damage, meaning that he can apply pressure simultaneously on top of hers and the rest of the team while keeping people up. This combined with speed ring will allow your team to play hyper aggressive and bowl the enemy team over more often than not. Bap also doesn't require as much attention as some other supports on the roster due to his two self-sustain abilities, which can also peel for you if need be, on top of having at least some level of mobility. His ult also builds incredibly fast, which makes up for the slower uptime of Orbital Ray, and now with the new Tactician passive is even stronger. The only downside is that Bap's projectiles struggle to hit flying characters, so if you're in the air, don't expect constant peel. Honestly, it's one of my favorite combos, even if it feels like Bap is pretty rare in the lower ranks. Oh, and make sure your Bap is able to keep up with your team, by the way. Bap is incredible for Brawl, but if he falls behind because he misses the Hyper Ring, he is going to struggle. Juno Brig. This is the classic Juno backline. The idea of the Brig is to keep Juno alive in the closer range encounters that her ring and ult will benefit from, while not requiring any attention herself. Her AoE healing also allows you to output more more damage depending on the situation and positioning. The only downside here is that the rank ladder is not the same as an OWCS match. In ranked, it's much more likely, and admittedly more efficient, to play more selfishly. It's more likely your Brig's gonna control an angle on her own, or god forbid you're on the hell ranks where they try to tank, as it isn't really efficient, especially on a lot of maps, to just sit in front of a Juno. Not to mention, ranked Juno feels a lot more mobile, moving from cover to cover, which Brig can't really keep up with. This isn't to say the combo is bad, but don't expect to hide behind your Brig unless you're duoing. Juno Illari. Illari is very good at solo controlling angles, something that Juno struggles with significantly. She has a high damage output that can make up for the fact that, even with pylon up, you're probably going to need to pick up the slack on the healing in turn. Her burst healing and the pylon itself, though, are pretty damn reliable to run to if you're being chased or poked out, so she can peel pretty effectively without having to give much thought. She's also just kinda overtuned in general right now, so she works on most maps as opposed to her normal niche ones, but this could change at any time. Juno Kiri. A very common backline just due to the popularity of the characters in general and in the competitive environment. Really, at high ranks, if you don't pick Kiri yourself, you're likely to have one on your team anyway. What do I even say here? I mean, Kiri kinda works with every support due to just the way she is. She's mobile, high damage, high self-sustain, can peel, can weave, and has an ult that rivals even your own in terms of fight-winning potential, so you can just interchange them each fight. Not really much to say here, Kiriko is just really good. Juno Lifeweaver. The problem with Juno Lifeweaver stems more from the fact that Lifeweaver's viability than it does the combo itself. Lifeweaver can technically weave his heals and damage, but it's very slow and clunky, and his damage, though having a lot of potential, is very unreliable, especially without his major perk. It's rare I see a Lifeweaver end a match with more than 2,000 damage. This means you have to make up for the damage, which can be a lot harder on some maps more than others due to your fall off. As well, despite essentially being a heal bot, Weaver can fall behind on healing a lot due to charge rate and single target nature of his heals, and now with the global DPS passive, it's even harder. Weaver also notoriously struggles playing first, which is a problem if you have a more aggressive comp, or if you want to use more aggro speed rings. The upside to Weaver is that even after his HP change, he can usually peel for himself pretty okay with dash and pedal, and sometimes you can get pretty cool aggressive pulsar life grip combos, but those are usually pretty niche. I wouldn't recommend, but it's not Juno, it's Weaver. Juno Lucio. This one is tricky. They're the only supports in the game with access to speed utility in their base kit. Generally in this composition, your Lucio will support your DPS on an angle or assist with dives to play aggro, while you focus on using your speed on your tank, typically something like a Ramantra. This combo can struggle though, due to Lucio's low healing output if the enemy team plays aggressive back, and you may find yourself even having to play as bait for a dive with your mobility while the rest of your team uses Lucio's speed to trade in turn. Not a terrible composition, but without communication can struggle heavily, and really just isn't as much fun for the Juno. Juno Mercy. I actually don't hate this one. Mercy excels at pocketing her DPS, which Juno usually prefers not to do. Damage boost is really good for long-range characters like Ashe or Sojourn, who can get picks from afar to clean up or make way for a bigger rush with your Hyper Ring. Ring is also good at helping a Mercy in a res target get away quickly for a more dangerous use of it. Mercy's solid for peeling for other support due to her mobility and lack of need to aim and long-term attachment to her beam, and doesn't need as much attention due to her sympathetic recovery passive. Also, damage boosted Juno can be really scary to try and dive. As much as I dislike Mercy as a whole, this is far from the worst combination, and might even get better once Mercy inevitably gets a rework, or a buff in Season 2 as we've seen. Juno Moira. Similar to Weaver, the issues with this comp are more from Moira's viability herself. Moira has high AoE heal, which is good for keeping up a brawl, but sort of like Bap, but significantly less reliable. She also has a lack of utility and burst value for her team, whether it be from a cooldown or just raw damage and healing output. At least you have a pretty survivable backline, and you usually won't need to pay much attention to her. Juno Wuyang. I don't actually have a lot of Wuyangs on my team anymore since his nerfs, so the experience here may vary a bit. Wuyang, in a similar fashion as Zenyatta, is great for attaching his healing stream to a mobile DPS, again something that Juno prefers not to do. This lets you focus more on your tank and providing damage output. Speaking of, Wuyang has a lot of that. Even with the nerf, he can still provide insane pressure from his primary fire, which is sure to keep people away, either diving or trying to close a gap for a brawl. He doesn't need as much attention due to this, as well as his movement and his wave, which helps you a lot for any quick pulsars or healing bursts you need to deliver into your team. You can also speed in anyone who gets bubbled by him too, so that's pretty neat. The biggest downside is that after all of his nerfs, he's a lot less mobile and aggressive as he used to be, so you might find yourself clumped together with your Wuyang a lot more often than you'd like. No, like seriously, go away. Why are you always running over to me? Get your own angle. Juno Zenyatta. Wrapping up the support combinations for now, we have Juno Zen, and honestly, it's kind of just worse Juno Wuyang. There's a much bigger discussion on power creep as a whole, how hero identity seems to be growing lost, and every hero now needs to have basically everything, which makes older characters less relevant, but really Wuyang just does everything Zen does, but better. Zen has no base kit mobility, can't boost his healing orb like Wuyang can, is the only support other than Juno with no self-sustain ability, so he needs constant attention, deals less base damage with his projectiles outside of right-clicking, Transcendence isn't nearly as good as it used to be, and his kick is basically irrelevant, especially compared to the utility of Wave. Only thing Zen Zen has going for him is the Discord Orb, which did get buffed to 30%, but his survivability struggles so bad in general that it didn't really do anything but make him stronger on the maps he was already strong in. Yes, you can play aggressive with the Zen on your team to run people over with Speed Ring, but you have to pray your team comes right back, they never do, because everything needs to be in an LOS of your Zen when you have one on your team. It's still better than Moira or Weaver with Juno, but only really on his good maps. And now for the new supports, as I made the script before the spotlight and the new season were even revealed. Juno Cat. As of writing the script, though nerfed, Territorial is still in the game for Cat's major perks, so this could change significantly based on the upcoming mid-season patch due to its removal. Cat's a very aggressive support. She loves to dive headlong into people, sometimes by herself, sometimes with a teammate who she can even boost up there with her. You really have to keep track of her, as her small hitbox and crazy movement speed make her very survivable. Just like the rest of Juno's dive partners though, you'll either find yourself needing to play aggressive with her, or if you aren't running full dive, focus on keeping the rest of your team alive rather than playing super aggressive. If your Cat's playing a bit more heal body and passive, or the patch makes her play that way, feel free to play more aggro in turn. Also, don't be afraid to distract a little bit with your mobility when the Cat's going for a combo play like Sky Noon, and remember that it'll be up to you to keep your other teammates up while she does this. Juno Mizuki. Mizuki fills a very similar role to Brig, but much more aggressive. He has, to my understanding, a bit better burst heal than Brig, and always has his aura applied, so you might be able to play a bit more aggro. You also never really need to worry about watching your Mizuki, as between his return, his passive, his aura, his chain, and his returning hat, his survivability is really high. If he plays very aggressive, you can try to help your team play aggro as well with speed and use your mobility to keep up. A more passive angle holding Mizuki won't have crazy damage output, so you can apply more pressure yourself. Just remember to keep your team up in between his hat cooldown. You also typically don't need to worry about potentially using Orbital Wave reactively, as Kekai Sanctuary is much better for that, so you can hold it for making plays instead. Well, that's all I can really think of to put in this guide. Of course though, if you feel like I missed anything or have any specific questions at all, please don't be afraid to leave a comment. I usually get to every single one whenever I can, and I'm more than happy to further discuss anything someone might be struggling with. I think Juno is actually in a pretty solid state right now, even though we are in a bit of a pokey meta that she can struggle with, and I always have a blast playing my favorite girly pop Martian. I mean, the entire motive of the channel is her face after all. I hope this video can help even just one person reach a new rank peak out there on Juno. And hey, if it did, let me know. And please, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and for more awesome Overwatch content in the future, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. I really want to get invested in making content for this channel, so it'll really help a lot. Oh, and if you want to see more content, check out my TikTok, Twitter, and Twitch down below. The first two are mostly re-uploads and ranting respectively, but I stream randomly on Twitch when I'm bored and want to spend a couple hours running it down on Overwatch. But with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. This is Salem, signing off.
Welcome